Hello and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the To-Do List. I am your host, Erik Fisher. This is the show where we talk to the people behind the productivity. And this week we are talking to someone behind one of the tools that is behind my productivity, 1Password. Aleen Sims is here to talk about 1Password, which is one of the digital backbones in organization that I have in terms of online security, organization in terms of passwords and accounts and all that kind of stuff. We are going to go from a 101 level all the way through to some master tips and tricks, and you're going to love it. Especially if you've never set something up, you're going to love that you can get 1Password and do all this with it. And if you've already been using 1Password, I'm sure you're going to learn some stuff in terms of how to create master passwords, how to do a security audit on your passwords, and much more. Before we get into that, I want to talk about one of the other digital backbones to my productivity, Nozbe. Thank you to Nozbe for supporting this episode of Beyond the To-Do List. And thank you again to Nozbe for supporting my productivity. Nozbe is a tool that I use and 300,000 other people and teams use to get their tasks done. Nozbe has the strength of being truly mobile. You can use it on an iPad, an iPhone, an Android device, Windows, the Mac, even an Apple Watch. And it is truly that one place I go to for productivity with mobility and collaboration. In fact, Nozbe is so dedicated to those three core elements that they are allowing me to give you a free 30-day trial of Nozbe Pro. All you need to do to get that is to go over to nozbe.com/TODO. That's nozbe.com/todo, nozbe.com/TODO. The cool thing about that 30-day free trial is that not only do you get an account, you get a second free account with that pro trial. What that enables you to do is to have a partner along with you. So not only can they then be productive and mobile and collaborative with you, the two of you working together in Nozbe can be more than the sum of the parts. So multiply your productivity. Grab a Nozbe free 30-day trial of the pro account for you and a partner. Again, you can get that for free over at nozbe.com/TODO, nozbe.com/TODO. All right, let's jump in and start learning about 1Password. This week it's my privilege to welcome Aleen Sims from 1Password. Aleen, welcome to the show.
Hi, Erik. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I am a huge fan of 1Password from even back before I was using Macs and couldn't use it because it was Mac only. I'm so glad to see that these days it has crossed over into that Windows and Android realm as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely an important thing to have everywhere you can have it.
Yeah. So my thoughts were, and again, I've done this with a couple of my other, favorite tools or software pieces, is I like to try and find somebody from that place and see if I can have them come on and talk with me about Talk with me about the tool, why the tool, what the tool, how the tool, all that kind of stuff, without making it a commercial for the tool the entire time. But people out there need to know I am a 1Password user, have been for years. It is my choice. So, but the reason I wanted to have you on is because I have this theory that even physical organization is great. Mm-hmm. Digital organization is something we're still not fully wrestling with, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what 1Password does is basically organize / secure your passwords, logins. I am selling it short. What else does it do?
A lot of things. Oh gosh. So I've been a 1Password user since, I don't even know, 1Password 3, which was a while ago.
Yes.
And
where are we at now? 5 or 6?
We're five on most platforms, 6 on iOS.
Okay.
So we're a little bit version number fragmented right now. But we're kind of working on some things to get that more kind of in parity. But I've been a 1Password user for a lot longer than I've worked at AgileBits. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And the thing I love about it is that it organizes so many things. I have credit card numbers stored. I have usernames and passwords, logins stored. I've even started using secure notes, which is basically free-form text. You can add attachments to those. So I've kind of started putting like work contracts in there because I do a little bit of contracting here and there for companies. So I just throw my contracts in there and they're all encrypted and I know where to find them. Oh gosh, passports. My passport information is in there. So is my husband's, both of our known traveler numbers for TSA PreCheck, membership cards, game and fishing licenses, pretty much anything. I can probably help you figure out a way to put it in 1Password.
Now, as you're listing all that off, I can't help but think that a lot of people who are listening to this are thinking, well, yeah, I store all that stuff in Evernote. Mm-hmm. And I'm cringing as I hear that thought because that's not secure. Like
Right.
It is and it isn't. I mean, I guess I don't trust that behind behind a password, I should say, on Evernote, that's all going to be secure, especially if you're syncing it with Evernote's servers, things like that. Yeah. But 1Password is different because you guys have a different kind of syncing.
Yeah, well, we have kind of, I think, a
couple.
fundamental difference in philosophy. And I don't think it's better or worse. I think it's better for some people and worse for others. And it just happens to be what I myself am comfortable with. So the first thing is 1Password itself has 256-bit AES encryption, which is basically a fancy way of saying it's got strong encryption, which is not, as far as I know, I'm not super familiar with Evernote. I've used it here and there, and I cringe every time someone's like, I store all of my passwords in Evernote. Please don't do that. But yeah, so it's encrypted, and for the most part, it's not kept on any kind of service that anyone else has access to, unless you decide to store to sync using iCloud or Dropbox. So that's another important distinction, is that kind of you decide how to sync. Now, we do have a new thing. It's still in beta. It's super exciting. It's 1Password for Teams. And we do use Amazon servers to provide like a sync service for that. But we still can't get at that data. It's protected you'd need to get a security person from the company to explain it, because cryptology and that kind of thing is kind of above my head. But we've put a lot of measures in place to make sure that we can't even get at that data. So that's an important thing. Like, we can't recover passwords ourselves. And if you're using the standalone products, the non-team versions of 1Password, we don't have anything. It's just on your computer.
Yeah. And that's what I like. That, for example, I can start up 1Password I'm a Mac user through and through, basically. And I can start it up here on my Mac, and I'm looking at it right now, actually. And I could start entering stuff here and save it just locally here. And say I am going to move to a different computer. In other words, I'm going to sell this computer and move to a different one or something like that. Then I can go into where that data is saved on my computer, and I can back that file up, and I can move it over to that new computer and start without having to start from scratch. I've got all my logins and everything ready to go. It's actually really, it's one of the things that, and I'm geeky like this, I like to do a fresh install anytime a new OS comes out or an upgrade.
Oh, you're my kind of people.
I can't move into it without having, it's like a clean, well, I won't go there. I was going to say a clean hotel room, but that might be an oxymoron.
Yeah.
So,
a clean slate.
It's a clean slate. Exactly.
Really cliche, right?
Yes. But when you start installing all these apps you're down, if you've not bought it from the Mac App Store, which then means you can just log in once and you get it all, then you've got to piece by piece or application by application install these and then pull up the licenses. Well, if you've got them all saved here in 1Password, then it's easy to bring them up, and they're right there and done and gone. And for that matter, the next step, your browser, which probably you'll have done already, you already have access to all your browser logins right then and there.
Yep.
And I am guilty of having been up till, using 1Password, storing my logins inside the browser because, it's easy and it's convenient, but that's not good.
Yeah.
It's just not a good thing to do. Again, it is convenient. I never thought twice about it, a long time ago, because I was working in a cubicle on a computer that was a desktop, Dell, that just sat there. So what was the problem with me just saying, save this new password and clicking yes every time? Mm-hmm. Because I felt secure in that, hey, if something's going to happen, it's going to be, it's not going to be on me. It'll be on work because I was being naive.
Right. Well, and it's still your passwords, right? It's not like it was work's passwords that were on the computer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing I love about 1Password really are the browser extensions. And I am like you, I am a Mac user. I have not touched a Windows machine since I left my last job at the beginning of 2014 to take this job. And I'm an iOS user. I don't own an Android device. So I'm very kind of in this Apple ecosystem. And the thing that makes 1Password so amazing are the browser extensions. And with iOS 7, when we got the capability to have extensions on iOS, so all you have to do is unlock 1Password and you can fill in usernames and passwords with like a click of a button. And so it's still, you've still got that encryption protection, the protection by encryption.
Yes.
But you can still access and use all of your information really, really easily, no matter where you are.
Yeah. I like that. I loved, for me, I actually had the iOS version first, which is strange, but I had an iPhone first. Before I had a Mac, I had an iPhone, and that was kind of the gateway drug. Mm-hmm. I had always wanted Mac devices back when it was like, oh my gosh, Mac devices are so cool. These days I don't drink the Kool-Aid. I just know that it works better for me than anything else. So whatever. Yeah. I'm a practical person over anything else. But that was always the hiccup, was pre-iOS 7, that there was that multitasking or the share sheet stuff, that once that came out, being able to just tap a couple buttons and not have to go into 1Password, go to the login, copy the password, which I did not know what it was, and it was highly encrypted or highly diverse, whatever. What's the proper term for that? What's is there a proper term like that? It's, letters and numbers and it's all uppercase and lowercase and jumbled all over. And
I think we'd call it adequate or complex.
That's it. A complex password. Because I knew there was a phrase I was not using.
There's a word here. I do that.
Yes. Yeah. So a complex password that I did not know, and I would then copy, go back to the app, go into it, hit paste, and then log in. And
right.
So yeah, and then once that was available, then it made sense to sync from not only the desktop to the phone and vice versa, but also to, my home laptop and my work laptop and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, it's like magic.
Yes. I get that there's all these different storage possibilities inside of 1Password, and for the most part, for me, I am actually still a basic user. When it comes to I've got software licenses in there, I've got passwords and logins. What's the difference between passwords and logins? Logins is like username and password is just password only?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically.
Okay.
The password category is generally generated passwords are automatically saved as a password. So if you go to, I don't know, your bank's website, you decide to change your password and for some reason it doesn't save, it's kind of like a fail safe that you can go in and, search for the URL of your website and find that password and update it manually if you need to. But I do know some people who create their own passwords and store them as password items because they don't have a username associated with it. So it's really flexible.
Yeah. So it's very much an archive. Or archive almost makes it seem like you're just throwing it in there and never going to see it again. It's more like a ready, always ready to access. Yeah, I don't know. Help me out here.
It offers some redundancy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that it's always on you. Like it's always on you if you have it on your phone, but it's always accessible, easily accessible, passwords and or other things. I'm really interested in the secure notes. Can you talk more about that? That really intrigues me because I'm walking into this and you mentioned that, and now I'm looking in here and I'm like, how did I not know about this?
Okay.
So
you've never used a secure
school
note?
me on this. This is new.
All right. Well, secure notes are basically it's like using a text editor. It's just a place where you can do plain text notes. So I've heard of people using it for everything from like, writers putting in their book ideas or plot ideas in there. I use them for contract information, details on that kind of thing, and also attaching my contracts. So I actually have a PDF of the contract available to me. But basically, you can use it anytime you want to store information and it just doesn't really necessarily have a format. You can just put it in a secure note and have it there. I think I've stored old VIN numbers because I sold the car and needed the information for tax purposes. So I've put like my car information in there, some like bills, recurring bills. I put like who it's due to and how much. So it can kind of just serve, it's kind of a catch-all for whatever you need it to be.
Okay. And again, it's all locked behind your now, what's the
your
proper
master
term?
password.
Your master password. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And let's talk about that for just a second. In
Sure.
order to, so for example, if you've got it would make some people nervous to suddenly hear, oh my gosh, you've got all your passwords sitting in this one piece of software. What if someone stole your laptop? They'd have access to everything. Well, not if they don't have your master password.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you suggest for deciding what to use as a master password? Because unlike other passwords, this is one where you're probably going to type it in often and frequent to get to these passwords.
Yeah. So the master password, I mean, it's important that it's not something that people could guess really easily. So, I have a lot of friends, I won't name any names, who use like their daughter's name and birth date as their password. If someone knows about you, that's really easy for them to guess. So one thing that we suggest is what's called diceware or dice words. And it's kind of like, I don't know if you watch Tabletop on YouTube with Will Wheaton, where they play, a bunch of celebrities get together and play games. But it's kind of playing your own little game where you get like, I believe it's 5 or 6 six-sided dice, and you roll them, and you have a word list, and you're like, okay, well, this dice says 5, 1, 3, 7, 2, whatever. And so you find word 5, 7, or 5, 1, 3, 7, 2 on your word list, and that becomes the first word of your password. So it's a completely random thing. Since you're using it so frequently, you can memorize it pretty quickly. We recommend, I think we recommend 5 or 6 words for your master password. And so you might end up, this is not going to be random. I'm looking around my husband's office at things on his desk, but you may have something like, and this is going to be very telling of his desk, dinosaur, spaceship, astronaut, turtle. That could be your master password. Don't make that your master password. And so they're actual words, how to spell, and you can just type them in. You don't have to worry about shifting. You don't have to remember if you substituted the A with an ampersand or an at symbol, or, if you used an ampersand in there, it's just words. Gotcha. So that's one way we recommend, but no matter what you do, it's super important because you're storing all of this information behind your master password. Make it as unguessable as you can. Okay.
And but again, that compromise of as unguessable as you can, that you're going to memorize, that you will memorize, because you are going to type this. I mean, I typed this thing. Geez, I couldn't even guess how many times.
A lot.
A day.
Yeah.
To get in and have it then autofill stuff as I log in. The compromise between as unguessable as possible versus as quick to type without thinking as possible. Because if you're typing, 50 characters or even 30, I think that gets to be a little bit to the point where it's like, okay, is this really worth it maybe not.
Yeah.
And you start to
Yeah.
second guess that you're doing this.
Yeah. And again, that's why we go back to dice words, is because, you're not messing around with, the complete randomness of special characters and capital letters. You're typing in words and maybe you separate them, every word with a hyphen or even a space. You can use spaces in your master password. Yeah, but there's definitely, you've got to think about what trade-offs you're willing to take. I know people who have 50 character master passwords, and I marvel at them because I never type mine in correctly the first time. So
wow, that is insane.
Yeah, it's, but it is important. And the master password we do recommend, especially if you do something random like the dice words, that you write it down and you keep it somewhere really, really secure. So keep it like in your wallet until you have it memorized and then shred it, or, keep it in your wallet until you have it memorized and then put it in a locked box, a safety deposit box or something like that. Because, you don't want it to be something you'll forget or not have access to, because then you're in trouble too. We don't have any way to reset your master password on this, our standard traditional programs. So, there's definitely a trade-off there.
Yes. So let's take that conversation of, selecting a strong but easily entered master password to this feature or features that you can do with a going through the steps or going through the different categories of a security audit inside of, like, once you've loaded this thing with hundreds of passwords, you can then click on, different portions of what's called a security audit in here. And there's just amazing benefits that this pulls it all in one place and then judges you, not judges you, but judges the password.
I don't know, it judged me when I started using it.
It's judging me right now because I didn't realize there are actually some in here that are actually marked terrible.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going on here?
Yep. Yeah, security audit is really cool because I was one of those people. I hate to admit this. Maybe I shouldn't, but I was one of those people who I had a password, and that is what I used everywhere. And it really wasn't a great password either, to be completely honest. It was kind of bad. And so my husband, then boyfriend, was like, you need to use 1Password. He didn't know I was doing this, by the way. He did not know I was reusing my password. You need to use 1Password. And it was really intimidating to me. I looked at it and I was like, this is really complex. There's so much to it. And I use the same password anyway, and I've never had any problems. Nobody's ever tried, nobody's figured it out. It hasn't been hacked. This was before, breaches were happening every day, or before we knew breaches were happening every day. And so, I kind of put it off. And then once I started using it and I installed the browser extension, and it just kind of automatically saved the logins as I logged into websites. And then I went to the security audit, and it's like, hey, every single password is duplicated. But it's important not to reuse passwords. So it was kind of like this light bulb for me where I was like, oh, I'm reusing this password. It's pretty short. I need to get something more complex in there. And so security audit told me about those passwords. They told me, hey, duplicates, but it also tells you, that password, that random password you came up with 6 years ago that's 10 characters long, that's not so secure either. Maybe you should go change that. And then we also have Watchtower. So when we know that breaches have happened, we kind of add it to the Watchtower database, and then you'll know, hey, you should probably change your password on this site because it might be compromised.
Yeah,
and
that's actually seeing that right now. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no. Yeah, I mean, it's a great tool. It's a great tool for just kind of keeping your finger on the pulse of what's happening with your passwords overall.
Yeah. I'm seeing two in here. And so here's the thing, like it says both those passwords. There's two instances in my Watchtower that says vulnerability alert, change password. And I won't say what the services are just so that nobody feels, slighted, but both passwords that I have in there, it says the strength is green. Like it's good stuff. So it's not that it's an issue of my password being poor. It's an issue of that service or organization or whatever it is has had a recent issue, and you guys know about it, and you're telling us, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and it doesn't. I don't want to say that they've necessarily had an issue. I don't.
Okay.
That's. It's just something to be aware of, that maybe something has happened. It doesn't necessarily mean, I don't want there to be judgment about these services.
Okay.
I guess is what I'm trying to get across is, it's just something, just be aware, go and change your password. It's random anyway. So, it's not like you're going to forget your new password. And it's usually pretty easy to do.
Okay. And then there's also, not only does it warn you about or let you access and know all in one place, which passwords are weak or which ones are duplicate across all of your stuff that you've got to change, but it also tells you how old they are, which is nice, because you can say, oh, I haven't updated all my passwords recently. Let me do that, at least once a year or something. So you can see, which ones show up in that. And I actually should probably do that. I've got some that are old. I don't have any that are 3 years old. I have a couple that are 1 to 3. So
yeah, I think one thing to keep in mind is that your best defense against any kind of bad stuff happening is to have random, unique passwords. So you have a different password for everything that requires a password, every website, I don't know, like I use OmniFocus. So the password I use for their sync server is different from every other password I have, So every site and service you use, have a different password and make sure that it's long and random. And that's really your best defense. Now, if you want to, as an added step, go in and change those from time to time, you can. And that's why, that's included in our security audit service. But I really want to emphasize, long, strong, random passwords are your best defense against bad stuff happening.
Yes, definitely. I'm wondering, there's not... is there any other hidden, pro features? Like, I didn't know about Secure Notes. So is there anything else you think is just super cool, makes this software, leaps and bounds above any other that's doing something similar?
Oh gosh. Well, keyboard shortcuts, if you're on Mac and Windows, I don't know a lot of them off the top of my head. I have the ones that I use. So, multiple vaults. I use many vaults. So I can change the vault I'm in with a command and a number, whatever number is associated with that vault. So that's pretty cool. Command / will bring up 1Password Mini in the menu bar on Mac. That's pretty cool. So I don't know, there are a lot of little tips and tricks, and I actually learn some new things, weekly about I didn't know it would do that. It's really, really powerful. And the thing I love is that you can really use those power, in my brain, I call them power features, like the command 1, command 2 to switch between 2 vaults, or, bringing up the mini with a keyboard shortcut, or you can just use your mouse all the time and, no worries. You can not know that Secure Notes are a thing that exists and 1Password is still really valuable. So that's what I really, really love is you can use it as intensely or as not as you want.
Yes. Let's talk a little, since we're talking all about security, let's talk a little bit about, we touched on it where you have your backup file or your database file, your agile keychain file, in other words, and that's on your desktop. However, there's the option to sync across all your 1Password installs with Dropbox, but there are other options as well.
Well, syncing is a little complicated. There's always Wi-Fi sync. So as long as you have devices on the same network, you can sync. But the issue is that, issue is the wrong word. The complication is that it has to be one computer to many mobile devices. So we do not currently have Wi-Fi sync computer to computer.
Okay.
And we discourage, using your computer to sync to your iPhone to sync to a second computer, because things can go wrong with that. So syncing is complicated. Dropbox is by far the simplest thing because it works across Android, Windows, Mac, and iOS, which are the four 4 platforms we are currently on. And it's really pretty simple to set up. We do also offer iCloud, but that's Apple devices only. So there are some trade-offs and some considerations for how you want to sync, but it's really an awesome thing to have once you get it set up. And it's not hard. It's just, deciding how you want to do it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the best ways, honestly, is I use Dropbox. I use the Dropbox sync, but I'm also always backing up on a local disconnected storage my file. So if something happens where Dropbox is compromised somehow, which, on their end, not on my end, like my account, because again, my Dropbox password is hidden. I don't even know my Dropbox password. It's in 1Password, and it's complex. And so it's in there. But if something were to happen on their end where they were compromised, then it'd be like, okay, well, I can change my password there. I can even delete my file out of there and then pull the new one in. And, I'm all good to go. No one's gotten anything from me. Plus, I think, I'll ask you this question. Even if somebody were to get a hold of my, 1Password Agile keychain, that's what the file is called. If they were to get a hold of that, they still wouldn't be able to access it without knowing my master password.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
yeah, and we actually have 2 file formats. Agile Keychain is kind of the older one.
Okay.
And now we've moved on to OP vaults. So any new vaults, which is what we call different instances of a 1Password file, I guess. The new ones are all, I think, across all of our platforms now, if not in the stable version, in the betas, are defaulting to the OP vault, just as a point of clarification, if that matters to anybody. But yeah, the real risk comes in my opinion, the real risk is having a weak master password. So I sync via Dropbox. I have a strong Dropbox password. If for some reason my Dropbox account is compromised, which is, it's unlikely, but it's possible, it's still, my 1Password files are still encrypted and they're still safe behind what I hope is a strong master password. So unless someone can guess that or has the hundreds of years to try to crack that password, they're kind of out of luck.
Yeah. That's awesome. Love it. Okay. Any other super awesome pro tips that you can clue us in on?
I don't know that this is a pro tip, but I want to emphasize how scared I was of using 1Password in the beginning.
Oh, I'm totally with you.
I don't know. I said a minute ago, it was really overwhelming. The prospect of entering all of this stuff into 1Password was so overwhelming. And I think it actually took me about a year to actually use it, from the time I got the license until I actually started using it. So if anyone's listening, and I know you probably kind of have more power users, but if anyone's listening and they're trying to convince relatives or even themselves that they should use a password manager, you don't have to do it all at once. Just commit to logging into 3 websites a day, installing the browser extension, log into 3 sites a day, and kind of take it piecemeal and save things automatically with the extension. Don't think you have to do everything at once.
Yes.
If you're like
that
me.
is true. That is so true. I completely identify with you, where when I first started, I finally said, okay, I can't not have my stuff organized first and foremost. But because, using, again, I was a password and login saved in the browser type person for the longest time. And then I just realized, look, I can't do that. I've got to have something. And especially because I wanted to be able to sync it to my phone. That was really, honestly, that was really the impetus. That was just like, enough's enough. I should have been doing better with all of this security and organization wise prior to now. But for convenience factor on my phone and not having to type the stuff over and over, that's what pushed me over the edge.
Yeah.
So once I said that, I was still very scared. I still thought, 1, man, it's very scary to keep them all in one place. And then 2, oh my gosh, this is just going to, in a matter of 2 weeks, just going to different sites and then it asking me to save. Hey, do you want to save this password? Hey, this password's not great. Just so you know.
Right.
Anyway, it started to snowball into, oh my gosh, I got 30, I've got 50, I've got 100 logins in here. I didn't know I had that many. And any single one of them, especially if you're using the same password or something, a variation of them all over the place. People are like, hackers are good. Like they will crack one place and take it across all over the place. Like it can happen. So,
yeah. And then I do have some, I guess, more pro tips too.
Great.
First of all, security questions. The best way. So I was a guest on the Shalane show a while back.
Yes.
And she had, she's kind of like a mogul, and she had information stolen because she answered security questions honestly. And so people were able to like call the credit card company. And because she put herself out there, like so many of us do, the answers to those security questions were pretty easy for people to find. And so her credit card information was stolen. Some of her login information was stolen. And that's when she started using 1Password. So one of the things I encourage people to do is lie on security questions. And with the random password generator, it's really, really easy to do. You just, what is your favorite color? And it's, 8H capital I 7Z. Or you can use a pronounceable password. So it's a little bit easier. But, and then you can save those with your login, using what we call custom fields. And so you can put one, in one piece of the one side of the custom field, what is your favorite color? And then you store that randomly generated thing on the other side, and then you can copy and paste it. So different cells to do these things. So that makes it really easy to lie on security questions. And that's another measure you can take to kind of up your security.
That's great. Yeah, I'm actually very familiar with Shalene's story because she was on another podcast talking all about that I actually work for, Social Media Examiner. So that was very interesting to hear all about that story and how she recovered and what she's learned and what we've subsequently learned. That's kind of why I, was brought back around to, probably I should talk about 1Password on this show, because we, for Social Media Examiner, did a security audit to make sure, hey, we want to make sure nothing can happen. So everybody's got to have passwords not saved in the browser. You've got to be using a password manager of choice. I was already using 1Password, so that was really helpful. But it made me step up my game and say, you know what, I'm going to do a personal security audit. And But one of the things I do need to do now is just go through my 1Password and update that stuff with stronger passwords. And so I see a security audit in my future in 1Password.
It makes for a fun couple hours or weekends, depending upon how many logins you have. Yeah. And, 1Password for Teams, it's still in beta. We're still kind of smoothing some edges and still adding some really neat features in. But 1Password for Teams, I think, is really going to relieve a lot of friction for organizations because, it's like you set up an account, you have an administrator, they invite people, and then, your people have access to 1Password, and it's super easy, So I think that that's going to help a lot of people out. And I'm really excited. But really, the most important thing is that you use a password manager. I don't care personally which password manager you use. I think 1Password is the best. And like I said, I've been a 1Password user since long before I started working there. But use a password manager. If you do nothing else, if you take nothing else away from this conversation, get started with something.
Yes. And there is the rub there is, hey, again, we've been talking about 1Password specifically, but all the aspects that are inside, all the what did you call them? Pro features of 1Password. Not everything has that, all of the same features, but there are still those core things where it's, look, again, I can't stress this enough. Don't save your passwords in your browser. Don't.
Or a Word document or Evernote.
Yes. And don't have duplicate passwords. Don't have weak passwords for that matter. And then have a strong master password to lock all of those up, no matter what tool you're using. So
Yep. And one thing I will say about 1Password, we have excellent support. We have, most of it takes place on forums. And I know a lot of people hear, oh, forums, that's awful. But we are very, very involved in the forums. We are committed to having every thread read by someone who works there, a response from someone who works there. So we're very, very active on our forums. So if you have questions, if you have if you have some kind of trouble with the app, we are there to help. So don't let that be a barrier, I guess. We definitely are. More than half of our employees, I think at this point, are customer service. So it's something that we really, really value, is making sure that we are there to support all of our customers.
That's awesome. I can say this. I've never needed to use the service. So
yeah, me neither.
That also says something, I think. Well, I don't know where else we can go other than to just conclude with that is, look, you need to do this for your own sake. So whatever you choose to use, keep those last few tips that we just said in mind. And thank you so much for being on the show. This was awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
I really hope you take advantage of this episode and move forward with 1Password. It really is the only password management system that I trust and have trusted for years now. Make sure to go check that out. Also, make sure to back that up with task management at its finest from Nozbe at nozbe.com, nozbe.com/TODO will get you a free 30-day pro trial for you and a partner that will upgrade your productivity with mobility and collaboration, enabling you to multiply your productivity. Again, that's nozbe.com/todo, nozbe.com/TODO. One cool little thing I want to throw out there is if you are already a Nozbe Pro user or Nozbe user in general, let me know, drop me a line at some of the templates you've created inside Nozbe. I want to start learning from you. Thanks again for listening. I will see you next episode. Beyond the To-Do List is a proud member of the Noodle Mix Network. Find more of our award-winning and award-nominated podcasts to make you think, laugh, and succeed at noodle.mx.